Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Charmed Season 1, Episode 7, The Fourth Sister. So with this episode, I feel the need to preface this episode with the fact that this series has 8 seasons. Each season has over 20 episodes in it. And of all the episodes in all the seasons, this one is my least favorite of them all. As such, I feel like my critiques are going to be harsher than usual because of how much I personally dislike the episode. Spoilers for the rankings. But I feel the need to preface it that it's going to be harsh. I can't help it. When I dislike something, finding anything positive will be difficult. And so if you do not want that negativity in your life, maybe skip this one. And with that being said, the episode in a nutshell is our next part, which is just a brief summary of exactly what happens within this episode. Hallie manipulates Aviva into infiltrating the Charmed Ones to steal their powers and free herself from the mirrors, while Phoebe and Piper compete over Leo, and Prue and Andy have some relationship troubles. Now that I've rewatched the episode, we're going to get into the rankings, where I will provide the reasons for the rankings. We rank on 2 lists, a mostly objective list, and then also a personal list, which mostly objective uses set values, and the personal list is, of course, just my opinion. All right, so let's start with the positives of the mostly objective rank values. First positive, of course, is that we have the official introduction of our multi-season main character, which is Leo. He has shown up in the series before, but he was there so briefly that I consider that more of like a teaser trailer for the actual character's introduction in this episode. He's there briefly, we don't see him again for a while, so this is what I consider to be his official introduction to the series, as this is an episode where he actually has a lot of interaction as a character. And that, being that he is a multi-season main character, gives him a plus 4 points to the episode. We then also have some main relationship development. We know as rewatchers, this isn't really a spoiler, but Piper and Leo are endgame. Obviously, we get some flirting and some chemistry here. They do add in a bit of Phoebe interference, which I'll speak more on in the personal rankings. But this is the first we're getting to see that Piper really likes Leo, and her kind of awkward attempts to flirt and ask him out. And so this development is also worth 4 points, which brings us up to 8 so far. We then, of course, have our single episode supporting character introduction, which is Aviva, who is the fourth sister, which is a plus 1 point, bringing us to 9. Now, with this episode, there is quite a bit of negative press on it as well. It's just objectively, there's a lot of negatives. So the first one is, of course, the main relationship regression or breakup. At the end of the episode, we have Andy having been stood up, having had multiple dates canceled, knowing that Prue's keeping a secret from him that she isn't willing to share, kind of reaching his breaking point. And basically saying he doesn't know what to do anymore and he's not even sure if he wants to continue seeing her. This, of course, is a major regression or breakup in that relationship. It is a breakup, which obviously, because they're not going to be seeing each other again so far, though I do know, because we are rewatchers, that there is still a lot of interaction between Prue and Andy, so I don't know if I want to call it a breakup or a regression, but either way, it's minus 3 points, which brings us to 6. And then we get into the negative messaging and or behaviors that are present within this episode, which is worth a -2. Now this is where my ranting comes in. Aviva is hands down probably my least favorite introduced character of the entire series. This is my least favorite episode of this entire series. And I'm going to walk you through this episode, all of the negative behaviors that are just completely brushed off by the main characters. I do not understand why it was brushed off so much, but let's get into this. So first, we have the fact that in the opening scene, she admits to, at Callie's suggestion, stalking the sisters to find out their routines, find out more about them. Stalking is criminal behavior. We then have her committing arson when she decides to go ahead and burn a poster of them looking for Kit, who she happens to have stolen. So she has committed thievery as well. She shows no gratitude whatsoever to her aunt, Jackie, who even asks her, "Why are you so antagonistic to me?" And she can't really give an answer because, like Jackie, she's a single, as far as we know, at least in the series, she seems to be a single woman. She works hard. She lives in a nice house. She has taken on the burden of a troubled teenage girl, her niece, something she didn't need to do, by the way. There is foster care. That is a burden that she willingly chose to take on. Every time we see her interacting with Aviva, she's trying to show she's cares. She's trying to get her to open up. She's trying to be a good person to her. And Aviva just immediately snaps. Like, she doesn't have to do anything except breathe, and Aviva's yelling at her. She's completely ungrateful for the fact that she has a nice room. She's being given everything that she wants. She's being taken care of out of the kindness of this person's heart, and all she can do is yell at this woman. Not only that, but later on, because she is needlessly aggressive towards her, she, again, when she comes in later to her room a second time, sets her on fire. Now, to be fair, Callie's technically the one who set her on fire. However, because Callie was behind Aviva, Aviva believes it's her powers that set the ant on fire. The ant is fine, by the way. But the fact is that she wanted to. That's why she so easily believes that it's her. And Callie just says, "Oh, your powers are growing." So she genuinely believes she's the one who set her on fire. Why? Because she was so pissed off at her that to her it was reasonable that she was the one who did it, even though in this case it was Callie. We'll be fair. We then also have her trespassing. When she brings Kit back, she literally just walks past Phoebe into the house without any sort of invitation. She then, later, once Prue and Andy arrive and Prue's trying to get the house to themselves, she refuses to leave when she is asked to, even though it is not her house. She then almost reveals their secret to Leo and Andy, which, because we are rewatchers, we know that wouldn't have been a big deal about Leo, but Andy, not a good thing. And then, when Prue insists that she leaves, she then decides to burn the videotape that is in Prue's hand, which, one, plastic fumes are dangerous from burning plastic. Number two, because Prue was holding it, she could have injured her. And number three, that wasn't even Prue's property. That was a rented video. That's destruction of property, but it's not even Prue's property. She'll probably have to return it, probably get a fine for it being late, maybe not even be able to use that store again because how do you explain the movie getting destroyed? Was it like, "Oh, well, it was on the coffee table and I accidentally kicked it into the fireplace. Oops, silly me." Like, how is she going to explain that? Like, that puts her in a very difficult position. And all three of those previous things that I just noted, the trespassing into the house, refusing to leave, revealing the secret, the property damage, out of spite, the being kicked out, all could have been avoided had she not burned that poster at the beginning but called the number on it to set up a time to return Kit when it actually was convenient for all of them, and that also would have had her entering the family on a more positive note as well. She actually might have succeeded. Like, Callie might have actually succeeded had Aviva been a little bit more reasonable in her approach to the Halliwell sisters. Then she goes and whines to Callie, saying she wants a family and doesn't have any. Hello, you have an aunt who graciously took you into her home when she did not need to and has been providing for you and trying to be there for you that you have been consistently rejecting. You have a family, you're just too stupid and blind to see it. Absolutely ridiculous. Then, of course, we have her delinquency when she skips school in order to talk to Phoebe about things and try to win Phoebe over because Callie says she's the weak link. And then, of course, the first thing she does, calls Prue a beach and starts bad-mouthing Prue to Phoebe. And the fact that Phoebe just kind of like Phoebe does, I guess, kind of defend Prue, but she also lets it go, which I think is kind of, I don't know how repaired their relationship is if she's willing to let that go so easily. Then Prue comes in, sees that Aviva has been let into their house by Phoebe. She, of course, has not trusted Aviva, being the one to call her out. And Aviva immediately starts yelling at her in her own home when she comes in, asking why she's there, like she has more of a right to be in the house than Prue does. And then, of course, she storms out. I already mentioned it, but she does then. Callie burns her aunt. She thinks it's herself. And to be fair to her as well, she does show remorse in this case. She does feel very upset that her aunt was harmed. So I can give her props for that. She's not completely irredeemable, but so far her behavior has been horrible. Then, of course, she goes to the sisters. They, being the kind-hearted people that they are, let her stay as she doesn't have anywhere else to go and she is a minor child. But here's the thing, while they decide to let her into their house, because Callie suggested that she could take Prue's place, like how would that even work? She decides to lay in wait to assassinate Prue in her room, and it's only lucky that Phoebe happens to have a premonition of her attacking and killing Prue, so that Phoebe is able to come in with a sweater as a shield to block her fire, and she almost successfully kills her. So we have an attempted murder, but a successful injury, because Phoebe does get hurt by the fire. Like, this is a list of criminal level behavior. Like, it's not just a bad attitude. It's not just, a little teenage rebellion. These are actual crimes that this person is committing. And when she's doing any of these, at no point is she possessed. She does later get possessed by Callie, and she can be forgiven for whatever Callie does. But at this point, she's not possessed. And there is the manipulation factor of, Callie having gotten into her good graces and asking her to do these things. But at no point does Aviva's alarm bells go off like maybe I shouldn't be stalking people, maybe I shouldn't be breaking into well, not breaking, trespassing into people's homes and refusing to leave. Maybe I shouldn't be assaulting people. Maybe I shouldn't attempt to murder somebody. Maybe I shouldn't be skipping class. At no point when she's doing all of these things of her free will does she think, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe this isn't the path I should take. At no point. So while there are some graces that can be given, overall, terrible. And then, of course, we also have the fact that this then makes her a very weak or dislikable supporting character. And while that usually excludes characters meant to be disliked, the way the show has the sisters reacting to this character, she's not meant to be dislikable, even though she very much is. Therefore, she falls under this category, and that is a -4. Which brings us basically to 0, so the lowest score possible is a 1. So we're already below that, so this is going to objectively be a 1 out of 10 episode. But I also want to point out that overall, I felt like the main plot was very weak. Like, The villain was Callie. She was on screen for brief seconds at a time, and then at the last battle was a final little possessed Aviva and flame through a bit before being shattered. But like Aviva, who was not the villain, had actually, like, in my opinion, more villainous behavior than even the like evil person because she wasn't evil and she still did all of those criminal behaviors and she wasn't the one that we were supposed to be rooting against, and yet we very much did, or at least I did. And so I just think that the overall main plot concept for this episode was just pretty weak, which honestly is another -4, so we ended up at a -4 for the episode overall, but like I said, the lowest score we can give is a 1 out of 10, which objectively makes this episode a 1 out of 10. So, as a reminder of our season 1 rankings so far, for our mostly objective ranking, in first place we have Something Wicked This Way Comes. Then I've Got You Under My Skin. Third place is Dead Man Dating. Fourth is Dream Sorcerer. Fifth, Thank You for Not Morphing. The Wedding from Hell. And then this one, The Fourth Sister, is unsurprisingly in last place. Now we're going to move on to my personal rankings here. Obviously, I have mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this is my least favorite episode of the entire series, of all 8 seasons. Of all the 20 plus episodes in all of those 8 seasons, this is the episode that I dislike the most. So it should be no surprise. It's a 1 out of 10 from me. That's the lowest score I can give. So it gets the lowest. But I'm still going to comment on the things that I did. Like, I already did my rant about Aviva's behavior, so I'm going to leave that a little bit to the side and focus more on those other things that I didn't really give as much time on in the mostly objective ranking. So as always, I appreciate that this show, in the first few scenes, usually will give us who we're rooting against. So we know who the enemy is. Even if the sisters are in the dark, we, as the audience, get to know, which I always have appreciated. Obviously, at the beginning, we see Aviva first, talking to Callie in the mirror. Callie's all colored blue in the mirror, looking very angelic and ethereal, like a good person. And then as soon as Aviva kind of turns her back and goes away, we then see Callie kind of morph to red flames behind her, red and yellow eyes, like a red, the whites of the eyes go red, and then the iris of the eye goes yellow, and like cat slit pupils. So obviously, demonic evil eyes, demonic background, showing us with very little doubt that this person, clearly evil, secretly. We then, of course, have all of Aviva's poor behaviors, which Callie encourages, though until she possesses Callie, she does not force, or sorry, until Callie possesses Aviva, she does not force her to do any of those behaviors. They're all Aviva's free will. But we do see that Callie does throughout the episode kind of manipulate Aviva until eventually she does possess Aviva. And that is when we get our final battle where possessing Aviva, Callie then goes to confront the sisters, damages some more property in the attic, and then we have Piper freezing Aviva. But Aviva has been proven earlier in the episode to not freeze because for whatever reason, the showrunners felt that even though she did all those criminal behaviors, she was a good person, not evil. I don't agree, obviously, but at any rate, because of this good person, innocent status, she doesn't freeze. But Callie being evil does. Once Piper freezes, Aviva falls to the ground. Callie's left there frozen. Prue then happens to use her powers to move Callie into a conveniently placed mirror that wasn't there in previous episodes in the attic. And it's very ornate and antique looking, so don't know where they got that from. But conveniently, there's a nice large mirror there that they are able to move Callie into. And then Phoebe takes her turn because they got to work together to defeat him and uses what looks like a golf club or some other long object to shatter the mirror, not therefore. At any rate, Callie then becomes vanquished at that point, and that is basically Callie's arc. So, of course, we have also mentioned several times Aviva's very poor behaviors in this episode, and it's shocking to me as a viewer that Prue seems to be the only one who really cares about that at the start. You know, Prue's the only one to call out her behavior. Who is she? Why is she there? Why is she doing these things? Calling out the fact that the thing she is doing is just objectively very bad things, you know, trespassing, damage to property. She even calls her a little arsonist at one point because she burned the video in her hand. Like, Prue, being the more responsible one, seems to really be the only one to see Aviva's nature coming through here. Of course, Phoebe and even Piper defend Aviva. Even when Aviva is actively trying to turn Phoebe against Prue, Phoebe seems to be brushing it off. However, in the end, once Phoebe is injured, she then admits that Prue was right, and then Prue does a 180 because she read a journal page that talked about Callie being the one whose idea it was to infiltrate the Charmed Ones, says that Aviva's not evil, she's just being used by evil. Which, like I said, her behaviors, apart from when she was possessed, were by her own free will, even if they were slightly manipulated. And her treatment of her aunt is, before even Callie, before anything, is absolutely inexcusable. When Prue goes to visit the aunt even tells her that she stole the cat, she was hiding it. She does dark magic, she chants, she hears other voices. It's all black, it's all skulls, it's the darker side of magic. And so then, like I said, Prue visits the room, sees the journal, figures out about Callie, and then just forgives all of the negative behaviors that she did before she was possessed. And it's like those were still her behaviors. I don't understand it. I don't understand this forgiveness for her. I really don't. Ugh. But anyways, it seems like after the final possession and the trauma and the regret over actually harming the aunt, that trauma leads her to seemingly turn over a new leaf. She's been given a new dress that belonged to Prue. She's no longer wearing the black lipstick. Her hair isn't slicked back. She's becoming a better person, and Phoebe's encouraging her to go out and be a better person in the future. So she does get her little bit of redemption arc, though I'm not as forgiving as the sisters. So I acknowledge a little bit of redemption there and the regret there, but at the same time, I'm like, those were your behaviors. You had free will. Even if someone told you to do it, if they told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? Classic cliche question that you ask to children, but seriously, she was told to jump off a bridge essentially by Callie, and she did it. So, I mean, how good of a person is she? I question it. But on to the more exciting parts about the romances underneath the main plot. This was what I considered to be actually kind of the good parts of the episode. Few and far between though they were. Obviously, we have Prue trying with Andy. In the episode so far, we've seen them kind of going back and forth, hot and cold, seemingly dating, but like never having time. And this episode kind of brings that all to a head, where they're trying to have that one date, and the first time they try, Aviva interrupts. The second time they try, Aviva interrupts. Then they try to not do it in the manor, but go to Quake, and Prue stands him up. So, obviously, he just wants a normal date. And I'll admit, I questioned, why are you trying to have a normal date at the manor of all places? One, there's two other people who live there who may potentially interfere, forget, etc., etc. Two, if a demon was going to attack them, it would most likely be at the manor. So why is she not going to his apartment? Like, you want to have a normal date, make the time, go to the apartment. In both cases, when they arrived for the date, they were already together. They had gone to the movie store first. Or sorry, in the first time anyways. And it's like, if you're going to the movie store, go to his house. Don't go to your house. Maybe then you'll have a successful date. Just a thought. But obviously, they don't. Prue consistently prioritizes the issues with her sisters, with Magic, and with regards to Aviva, going to Aviva's room, visiting the aunt, over her plans with Andy, clearly showing that she isn't invested in that relationship, which we've also kind of seen from the other episodes as well. It's often Andy approaching her first, Andy putting in the effort, Andy apologizing, and her kind of getting angry, being standoffish, keeping her secret. So I do believe him when he says that he feels that he is more invested in the relationship, because I also think that he was far more invested in the relationship. And after 7 episodes, and over the course of those episodes, most likely several months of time between episodes, of trying, consistently not getting anything, not being able to be trusted, asking her to confide in him, her saying she can't, that it's complicated, their dates constantly getting canceled. I am on his side a bit when he says that she isn't vested, it hurts that she doesn't trust him, and that while he loves her, he doesn't think that there's anything more he can do to show that he is somebody that she can rely on and trust, and that he is no longer sure what he wants to do as far as the relationship. And she, of course, asks him, "Are you saying you don't want to see me anymore?" And he says he doesn't know what he wants, essentially breaking up with her, which honestly, at this point, feels like it was a long time coming. And then we have the Piper Leo. Now, like I've mentioned before, they are endgame, and honestly, I like their relationship. I like that they go through trials and tribulations and that they always come out the other side, and they tend to come out the other side stronger than ever, and then they do get their happy ending at the end. So, Piper and Leo, to me, are an incredible relationship. One of the few, at least semi-healthy relationships that you find on TV or in movies. So, I love their relationship. However, obviously, this is early days. Phoebe and Piper decide that they're going to compete over Leo. Now, from my perspective, maybe it's because I know the future, maybe it was the actor and actress, but there's a lot of chemistry between Piper and Leo that just isn't there with Phoebe. But throughout the episode, I don't mind the competition so much. However, I do think that they devolve into very immature back and forth. What am I trying to say here? So basically, Phoebe and Piper both like Leo. They enter into a competition. Phoebe, when Piper is doing her nurturing, like she's at the chef, she wants to give him food, give him tea, give him baked goods, all of this stuff. Phoebe decides to use that and call her mom and tells Leo to think of Piper as his mom because she thinks of her that way. We then have Prue trying to get in there and say, "Phoebe, you are a boyfriend stealer. You're only interested in him because Piper likes him, and Piper really likes him." It's kind of telling Phoebe to back off. Phoebe, of course, resists, though it is confirmed by Piper as well that there was the whole thing with Roger. There was also a Billy Wilson in 8th grade whom Phoebe made out with when he was supposedly seeing Piper or going to homecoming with Piper, so she has a history and track record. But Prue bows out because Phoebe's stubborn, and then Phoebe and Piper agree for it to be a friendly competition. We then have, when Phoebe's not around, Piper asking Leo to go to a movie with her, and he agrees, but then the whole thing with Aviva happens, and Phoebe finds out about the movie and basically invites herself along, butting in so that they don't really get that date. Um, Leo also then offers to bring stain samples because he believes that the molding should be restained instead of painted. And Piper then takes a second chance to basically tell him, don't come to the house where Phoebe is. Come to Quake and we'll look at it over lunch because Prue will be busy and Phoebe won't care. Of course, he then goes to Quake at lunch, bringing the samples, and that is just like a cute little interaction of Piper kind of awkwardly flirting, looking at the samples, and they have great chemistry. From an audience perspective, they have a very great chemistry. Now, one thing that does piss me off, though, is that instead of it being a friendly competition, first we have Phoebe saying, call Piper mom. Now, Piper, knowing that Phoebe is not gay, decides to tell Leo that she is at a gay and lesbian group to basically try to take her out of the running. Later on, Leo then confronts Phoebe about her and Aviva, thinking maybe that they might be a thing, though he does so very awkwardly and is more like implying. And this, of course, makes Phoebe a little bit upset. So then Phoebe says that Piper's medication makes her say the strangest things, but her shrinks, plural, are on it, implying, of course, that Piper has mental disorders. And I'm like, poor Leo, he's like finding out all these really bad things, and none of them are true about Piper, but at the same time, it's like your sisters. I understand having that like sisterly competition, but I feel like some of these digs, especially since they are lies, are maybe a step too far for my liking. And because I already know Piper and Leo are endgame, I also know that Phoebe has no chance. And even the showrunners kind of knew that she had no chance because I think there's only one or two more episodes where this competition even is a thing before Phoebe's like over it. And we're on Piper and Leo because that was meant to be. So I don't really enjoy this back and forth with them. I do enjoy Piper and Leo's interactions, but these digs at each other between the sisters and the sabotaging and the even fact that there is a competition like this in the first place, not overly fond of, which is why it doesn't really help the rating to improve beyond a 1. But anyways, having said all that, I think that's all of my opinions on this episode. Mostly negative. Like I said, it's my least favorite episode of the entire series. It was bound to be. And we'll just remind you of the season 1 rankings so far, now that that has been said. So in first place, favorite episode of the season so far, Dead Men Dating. In second place was Something Wicked This Way Comes. Third was Dream Sorcerer. Fourth, Thank You for Not Morphing. Fifth, I've Got You Under My Skin. Sixth, The Wedding from Hell. And then in last place, and I guarantee you this is not changing, we have this episode, The Fourth Sister. And lastly, we come to our series ranking. In the series ranking, we're going to be ranking each of the seasons against each other, and that's going to be based on the scores that we give each episode, which will at the end of the season be calculated into a percentage, and then of course once the series is finished, each season's percentage, the one with the higher percentage will be the best season, the one with the lowest will be the worst season. And in the case of this episode, in both objective and personal, it got a 1 out of 10 ranking. So that brings our season 1 ranking so far on the mostly objective list to 42 out of 220, and on the personal side, 38 out of 220. With that, we've rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 1, Episode 7, The Fourth Sister. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.